Hello everybody, it's Kay and thank you for watching. So yes, this is another scenario where I get a lot of questions asked because you guys notice in a lot of my videos I talk about the different types of IVF. And so in this video, I'm gonna talk to you exactly about what Mini IVF is in comparison to conventional IVF in an effort to see if this is something that you could explore or discuss with your doctor if they are able to do it. So let's go ahead and get started. So when I was going through my infertility journey, mine was, again, my diagnosis was age-related infertility. I had diminished ovarian reserve and I was a poor responder. So I didn't have a lot of eggs, and there's a minimum of 3 eggs that you need for conventional IVF. I had a high FSH of 25 and an AMH of 0.1 when I 0.14 when I started the initial testings to see if I qualified for IVF. So naturally speaking, the IVF that everybody knows is conventional IVF. Conventional IVF is a wonderful treatment, because for those who can benefit from it, it allows you to build your entire family off of one cycle. And that's why it costs so much, because you're given a lot of medication to grow the eggs that you have. And then from that, IVF is conducted, and you are then able to either save your embryos and transfer them one by one or multiple embryos, depending on whatever your plan is. And so it is really a really good treatment if you qualify for it. The only thing about my situation was, because of my diagnosis, I was really just wasting money doing conventional IVF because I didn't have a lot of eggs. So why would I take all that medication? And so because my husband and I did research, is when I actually was like, you know what, this kind of makes sense. This is, you know, there's different types of treatment, and this is not the type of IVF that would work for us. So then I discovered minimal stimulation IVF. It is a mini version, mini stimulation. And how that works with my doctor, because one of his specializations obviously is older women, and with the same diagnosis as I had. And so women like me, we're what they call poor responders. So we don't have a lot of eggs, we don't respond well to the medication, but we don't have a lot of eggs. And so for me, there were some months where my follicle count would be 2 eggs or 3 eggs, and then I'd end up with 1 that would mature. And so that was just my reality. And so what Mini IVF did is it gave me a chance at having my own genetic child, because the IVF, the way that it's done, is they retrieve whatever eggs that you have. So they don't cancel and make it an IUI like conventional IVF does. They retrieve the egg, they fertilize it, and then go through the steps just like in any other IVF. You only then just have, you know, if you have 1 egg, then that's the 1 egg that you track. And so there was many of my 12 IVF cycles where I had 1 egg, especially when I first started, right? So how did it work in terms of protocol? Obviously with conventional IVF, the drugs, when I went through it, you know, it was $5,000 worth of medications. Makes a lot of sense, because if I did have a lot of eggs, I would need a lot of medications to mature as many as I can to increase my odds. With Mini IVF though, the medications are very reduced. And I remember even making fun of what my doctor had diagnosed, because for Mini IVF, literally, my doctor gave me half a Clomid pill and Menopur 75 IU every other day, and that was it. Now remember, I was coming from the conventional medication, which was almost like 150 IU of Menopur with Gonal F, and it was just, from what I remember, it was just a lot of medications that I was taking when I attempted conventional IVF. So to kind of go back to, you know, doing that protocol, it was a big shift. But it does make sense, because if you don't have 20 eggs, 10 eggs, and you only have one, then, or you have three, you start off with 3 follicles and one ends up maturing, you can see how it makes sense that also the protocol, the medications that you're taking would be minimal. And so it's funny, because the cycle where I got the embryo, where I got my baby, that was the same protocol that I used. So I had 3 eggs that cycle. One of the eggs did not make it. It was a tretic, which is a terminology for an egg that does not look viable. Again, I have age-related fertility. I am 44 years old. It's a 44-year-old egg. So one of them was a tretic, and then the other 2 kind of fertilized, and then they kind of take them through the steps just like they would any other IVF. And one of them arrested after fertilizing for a few days. And then this one actually, made it through up to the 5th day, and we were able to then freeze it. So what was really exciting for me in doing mini IVF for us was that, number one, it gave me a chance at IVF, because obviously with conventional IVF, as you know, most people do 1 cycle. You're paying close to over $20,000 in some cases for it, and I had a 97% chance of it not working, because obviously, even if they did retrieve and do it, since I'm older, I need more cycles, because most of my eggs are not, I wouldn't say valid, but most of my eggs are 44-year-old eggs, which is, again, age-related fertility issues. So hopefully that helps you understand that a little bit more. The other thing I'll talk about is cost. So obviously, now that you've heard about exactly what mini IVF is, you can kind of see why it costs less. Again, with conventional IVF, at the time that I did it, it was over $20,000 for the clinic that I used. Again, makes sense if you're building your entire family off of that. Many people who go through, depending on their diagnosis, who go through conventional IVF, they have many eggs, and so you can freeze some, and then you can have your babies off of 1 cycle. But then when it comes to minimal stimulation IVF, there's not a lot of eggs, and you need more cycles. So it costs a quarter of what conventional IVF would cost. So you find that clinics have the range anywhere from $4,500 to $6,000 per cycle, because again, you don't have a lot of eggs. You're going to have to do multiple cycles, to be able to accumulate those eggs, right, and increase your chance. And so obviously the clinics are not going to charge you $20,000 plus to do 1 cycle of minimal stimulation IVF, if that makes sense. So just wanted to share with you, and as you go through with the doctors, depending on the clinic that you're with, if they do mini IVF, they'll kind of walk you through the process. All right, and I think that captures it. Now, I do also want to mention something as well. Somebody asked me if minimal stimulation IVF can be done even if somebody has a lot of eggs. Absolutely. There are some people that I knew where I was receiving my treatment who chose to do minimal stimulation IVF because they didn't want a lot of medications. A lot of people who have viable eggs don't always want a lot of children. They're probably looking for 1 child at a time. They just have, whatever the infertility diagnosis is, they're just looking to have 1 child at a time. So they may not need to stimulate many eggs. And so even if you have viable eggs, you could do a minimal stimulation IVF, and your protocol is less hectic on you. You're not kind of heavily medicating yourself. And so that is a choice. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the people that were doing that were doctors, physicians, people who are not able to take time off work. They don't want to go through OHSS, which is a condition whereby if a lot of eggs are stimulated, you can get really, really sick, and you have to kind of stay away from home away from work to kind of recover. And so there's a lot of physicians who do minimal stimulation IVF, because remember, the protocol is less invasive, and the retrieval process is not the same as the conventional IVF where they put you under, and so there are options for that as well. Last thing I'll talk about is how the retrieval works. So obviously if you're doing conventional IVF, then you're probably a person that has, it's going to stimulate, if it ends up working out for you perfectly, multiple eggs, right? Which is a blessing. And if you're in that situation, I'm so happy for you, because again, the blessing of conventional IVF, you can build your entire family off of that cycle. Understandably, because it's a lot of eggs, they put you under to do the retrieval process. When I went through minimal stimulation IVF, because there were cycles where I only had one egg, and there were cycles where sometimes I'd have 2 eggs if I was lucky, which was really nice. And then there was even when my treatment plan, like I told you, my doctor ended up really working with my body in a way that produced results, because I ended up actually producing more eggs working with him with his protocols. I think my body just responds to less medication. There was even a time that I was producing 4 mature eggs per cycle. And the retrieval is done without anesthesia. I would just take a Tylenol and they would do the retrievals, without me being under. Some people ask about the pain, and they think of that and they think, oh my gosh, that must have been so painful. It really is like being injected with a needle. And so that's, kind of like how it feels like. And it really, was not painful, particularly when they were retrieving like 1 egg, when they were retrieving 2 eggs. But I will say when they were retrieving the 4 eggs, I remember that particular cycle, I think it was a little bit painful. So I think if you have 4 eggs or more, you may want to talk about different like pain management. And they do have pain management levels at the clinic that they can talk to you about, so you don't have to worry. But whenever I had like that 1 egg, it was just kind of like I said, like a shot, when you get injected with the needle, it was kind of like the same thing. And I just took a Tylenol before that as well. So that is the biggest difference between the retrieval process of conventional IVF and mini IVF. All right, so I hope that helps you. I'm not a medical professional. I'm just trying to share with you my experience. Just make sure you follow up this conversation with your doctor. Now remember, one thing I also wanted to share with you is that please note that not all doctors do mini IVF. In fact, the doctors I initially worked with were not specialists in mini IVF. In fact, the second doctor I worked with, who was able to do treatments during the pandemic, because there were some facilities that really were able to cater to older women who were trying, and I was able to try one of those. They said that they had to talk to the board to see if they could alter the treatment, because conventional IVF is really is the IVF treatment in the United States. A lot of clinics are still using the conventional IVF. And so to help you, I'll share with you the research I did. So I found 3 doctors that do mini IVF in their clinics. I mentioned Dr. Zhang in New York City, Dr. Saul Silber in Missouri, and my own doctor that I worked with, Dr. Frank Hillian of the Life IVF Center in Orange County, California. And so, you can kind of explore and see which doctor you want to see. And the way I did it, especially if you're thinking about maybe exploring that, and you don't live in LA, I did outside monitoring. So the way outside monitoring works is that you do all the monitoring locally where you are, and then the place that you do the monitoring, the clinic or facility that you do the monitoring with, they send the results to your doctor. So in that case, they would send the results to my clinic in LA, and then my doctor would recommend a treatment plan. So we did this for the entire 12 IVF cycles. I did outside monitoring, which made it a lot easier, and I would then just travel for the treatment. Let me know if you want me to talk more about outside monitoring, and also let me know if you want me to share with you about the other type of IVF, natural cycle IVF. I'm happy to, but just let me know in the comments. Again, the more we empower each other, ladies and gentlemen, especially those of you who are older, looking for a baby, trying, with your own genetic egg as a pathway. Let's empower each other and give us information. I know I've learned a lot from YouTube, and I did a lot of research on my own that led to success after lots of failure. And so I just wanted to share that with you. And I want you to remember one thing, particularly if you have age-related infertility and you are older. Never look at your IVF cycles as failure. You have to be patient if you want your own genetic child and your eggs are older, right? Don't look at your cycles as failure. Let each of your cycles communicate and tell you something. Because for me, I remember that was the most empowering, was when my husband kind of coached me into that. Like, what is it that this cycle is telling you, so that you could use that for the next cycle if you decide to do it. And the other thing you also want to do is don't be afraid to think about the pathway to baby. Like for us, we knew that if this did not work for us, we would move into the next pathway for baby, which in our case would have been donor egg. And so don't be afraid to face the reality of what could happen, because IVF is a journey of hope and faith. I always tell you guys, it is not guaranteed to work. So we're very aware that we could have gone through all these cycles and they not work. We were very aware of it. And so empower yourself. Knowledge is power. Don't look at that as a deterrent. Go with a plan. And remember, there's always a pathway to baby. It is just doing the best that you can with whatever option you have. And then if that does not work and you still would like a child, moving on to the next step. All right, so hopefully, guys, this was helpful for you. And let me know if you have any other questions in the comments. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.